Entertainment became rescue. He risked his life for a broken alien girl. As he grew older, that thrill led him to become a stunt performer, traveling from one world to another, performing shows for audiences who craved excitement. On some planets, humans were admired for their creativity and courage. On others, they were mere curiosities. But Elias liked it either way. He liked being the one who could make a crowd forget their troubles for just a few minutes. Tonight, he stood on the platform of a massive arena in the industrial city of Xiron 5. The arena was a mix of metal scaffolding, floating platforms, and anti-gravity rings. Lights glimmered in green, blue, and violet, reflecting off the polished surfaces and the small, scattered pools of water on the arena floor. The audience was a mix of species: tall, spindly beings with translucent skin, squat creatures with 4 eyes, and others whose forms Elias could not even name. They all cheered, their voices overlapping in a chaotic musical hum. Elias took a deep breath and vaulted into the first anti-gravity ring. His body spun, flipped, and twisted in ways that would have been impossible without human agility and careful timing. Each movement was calculated, but it appeared effortless. The audience roared, and Elias felt the familiar rush of excitement. His heart raced, and for a moment the entire galaxy seemed to shrink down to the small space of the arena. Then he noticed her. She was small, hunched in a shadowed corner of the crowd, her glow dim and uneven. Her skin shimmered faintly in blue and silver patterns, but it looked damaged, as if someone had tried to repair her and failed. One of her limbs seemed mechanical, half metal, half flesh, but the metal was bent, worn, and scratched. She didn't cheer. She didn't clap. She didn't even move much. Her eyes, large and luminous, followed every move of Elias, but there was no joy in them, only fear and pain. For a moment, Elias froze mid-flip. The audience didn't notice. They were too busy with his performance, shouting and cheering. But Elias' heart tugged him. Humans had a strange habit of noticing things others overlooked, and something about this girl made him feel uneasy. He landed on the platform, bowing to the cheering crowd, but his mind was elsewhere. After the show, Elias walked down the corridors behind the arena. The crowds dissipated, leaving only the shadows and the smell of metal and ozone. He could still see her, moving slowly toward the back exit. Something inside him told him he couldn't just leave her there. Elias had never been a hero in the traditional sense. He wasn't a soldier or a law officer, but he had always believed in helping those who could not help themselves. He approached her carefully. "Hey," he said softly, trying not to scare her. "Are you okay?" She flinched, taking a step back. Her eyes widened in fear, and she murmured something in a language Elias didn't understand. It was not threatening, just desperate. He held up his hands to show he meant no harm. "I'm Elias," he said slowly. "I can help you. Come with me." For a long moment she hesitated. Then slowly she allowed him to guide her out of the shadows. Her small hand brushed his, and he felt a tiny pulse of warmth, a fragile human connection in the cold metal corridors of Xiron. They reached the street, which buzzed with hovercars and traders shouting their wares. Elias scanned the area, making sure no one was following them. The city of Xiron 5 was known for its lawlessness in certain districts, and he didn't want anyone to take advantage of her vulnerability. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed to her chest and whispered something that sounded like a name. Elias repeated it slowly, trying to remember. "Lyra, Lyra," he nodded. "All right, Lyra, we'll figure this out together." Finding a safe place in Xiron 5 was not easy. Most of the inns and hotels were expensive or unsafe. But Elias knew a small warehouse on the edge of the industrial sector, abandoned but still sturdy. He led her there, keeping to shadows and alleyways. Lyra followed, moving cautiously, her small frame almost disappearing into the dim light. Once inside the warehouse, Elias set down his pack and offered her some food he had brought for himself, protein cubes and water. She took it slowly, examining everything around her, her glowing eyes filled with cautious curiosity. "Don't worry," Elias said softly. "No one's going to hurt you here, not while I'm around." She didn't speak, but the faint glow of her skin seemed to brighten slightly. Elias took it as a small victory. As he watched her, he realized that her injuries were more than just physical. Her mechanical arm and the uneven patches on her skin were only part of the story. There was a fear in her eyes that told him she had been through things no one should endure. Humans often survived through courage, resilience, and sometimes luck. And Elias felt something stir inside him, a human instinct to protect, to fight for those who could not fight for themselves. Night fell over Xiron 5, and the city's neon lights reflected off the metal surfaces of the warehouse. Elias sat near Lyra, keeping a careful watch as she slept. Even in her fragile state, there was something remarkable about her. Her species, or whatever combination of biology and machinery she represented, was unique, and he felt honored to witness it. For the first time in years, Elias felt that his life of entertainment and performance had led him to something far more important. Saving a life, helping someone broken, could be more thrilling and meaningful than any stunt or acrobatic feat he had ever performed. And he realized that this was only the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about bravery, empathy, and the value of human courage. Outside, the wind carried the faint sounds of the industrial city, the hum of hovercars, the chatter of distant workers, and the occasional warning siren. But inside the warehouse, there was a fragile calm. Elias felt a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. He had rescued her from the crowd, from danger, and from neglect. And now he would protect her no matter what it cost. The night stretched on, filled with quiet determination. Elias didn't yet know the dangers that awaited them or the enemies who would come searching for Lyra. But he knew one thing. Humans were resourceful, courageous, and driven by a strange, relentless hope. And in this moment, that hope was enough to face whatever came next. For Lyra, the night was the first time she felt safe since her world had been destroyed. For Elias, it was the first time he realized that entertainment could become rescue, and that rescuing someone might be the most daring performance of all. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the cracked windows of the old warehouse. Dust motes floated in the air, illuminated by the pale light, and the city outside began its usual rhythm of noise and movement. Elias stirred first, stretching his tired muscles from the previous day's performance and chase through the streets. Lyra had slept most of the night, curled up on a pile of soft blankets he had found in the warehouse. She stirred now, blinking her large, glowing eyes at the sunlight. She looked different in the daylight. The shimmer of her skin seemed more uneven, the patches of mechanical parts more obvious, and yet there was an undeniable grace in her movements. Elias watched quietly. He had promised himself he would not rush her, but he needed to know more. "Lyra," he said gently, kneeling beside her, "we need to talk. I want to understand who you are, where you come from." She flinched slightly, but she did not move away. Instead, she pointed to her chest again and whispered the same name. "Lyra." Elias nodded, remembering it carefully. "I know your name," he said softly, "but I need more. Can you show me your home or tell me who hurt you?" Lyra hesitated. She looked down at her hands, the fingers slightly trembling, and then at the metal arm that replaced one of her limbs. Finally, she shook her head, her glowing eyes filled with pain. Elias realized this was more than fear, this was trauma. Whatever had happened to her, it had left scars deeper than the skin. Elias sat back, thinking. Humans were often good at connecting without words, through patience, trust, and small gestures. He reached into his pack and pulled out a few small mechanical toys he had collected during his travels. They were simple, nothing advanced, but they clicked and whirred when wound up. He set one down on the floor and nudged it toward her. Lyra's eyes widened. She reached out slowly, her fingers brushing the toy, and a faint smile appeared. It was almost imperceptible, but Elias noticed. That small reaction told him that she was willing to trust him, even if only a little. He decided to try something else. "I have a device," he said, pulling out a small, portable translator from his pack. "It can help us understand each other. Can I try it?" Lyra nodded cautiously, letting him place a thin earpiece near her head. The device hummed softly and began translating her quiet, broken speech into human words. "My station destroyed, they took me." Her voice was weak but clear now. Each word carried weight, each pause heavy with fear. Elias' heart tightened. "Station?" he asked gently. "You mean your home or a lab?" "My lab home gone," she lowered her head. "They experiments dangerous." Elias felt a surge of anger, but he kept his voice calm. "Who did this to you?" Lyra hesitated, then whispered names Elias could not understand. But even in their strangeness, he could sense danger, cruelty, and greed. Someone had sought to use her in ways that were wrong, and she had survived by luck or skill. Humans had survived against impossible odds before, but he realized she had endured something far beyond anything he had seen. He gently asked, "Do you remember what they wanted from you?" "Power weapon," she whispered. "I not let." her small fists clenched, her metal arm twitching slightly. Elias nodded, understanding. Whoever had attacked her had intended to use her in some terrible way, but she had resisted, survived, and escaped. Elias realized that Lyra was not just fragile, she was strong. Her body had been damaged, yes, but her mind and courage were intact. Humans often celebrated resilience, and in that moment he admired it. He knew that saving her was not just about protection, it was about helping her reclaim her life and her strength. The rest of the morning passed quietly. Elias brought simple food, and Lyra ate slowly, still cautious. She explored the warehouse a little, touching objects, examining corners, her glowing eyes curious but wary. Elias watched her, thinking about how humans could adapt to any situation. His mind raced with ideas on how to help her heal, how to protect her from those who might come looking. Around midday, the translator picked up a faint signal from the city's communication network. Elias quickly tuned it to see if anyone was searching for Lyra. There were vague mentions of an escaped test subject and warnings among local gangs, but nothing detailed. Still, it was enough to tell him that danger was coming. He couldn't hide her here forever. "We need to move," he said softly. Lyra looked up at him, fear flickering across her face. "I know it's scary, but staying here will only make it worse. I can help you, I promise." For a moment she hesitated. Then she nodded, her trust in him growing slowly, carefully. Elias smiled. It was not much, but it was a beginning. They left the warehouse together, moving through the crowded streets of Xiron 5. Elias kept her close, blending into shadows and alleys, avoiding attention. The city was alive with commerce, noise, and movement, but it also had hidden dangers. Humans had survived in harsh conditions for thousands of years, and Elias relied on instincts honed through years of stunt work and travel to keep them safe. As they moved, Elias asked gently, "Do you remember your family, your home before the lab?" Lyra's eyes glimmered, and she whispered something he could not translate fully. But he could see the pain, the longing, and the memory of loss. He understood. Humans often remembered what they had lost, and the desire to reclaim it was powerful. He realized that Lyra's journey was not just about survival. It was about healing, finding safety, and maybe one day reclaiming what had been taken from her. By late afternoon, they reached a quiet part of the city near the spaceport. Elias had heard of an old smuggler who sometimes provided safe passage for those who needed it. The man was gruff, suspicious of humans, but he had a reputation for helping the desperate. Elias explained Lyra's situation carefully, omitting nothing, and the smuggler agreed to provide temporary shelter and advice. Lyra stayed close to Elias, trusting him more with each step. He noticed how she examined every detail, the ground, the walls, the people around them. Her body had been through damage, but her mind was sharp. She was learning, observing, and adapting. Humans admired adaptability. It was one of the reasons they had survived in countless dangerous environments. And Elias realized that Lyra had that human-like spark within her, a will to live and to fight back. That evening, as they rested in the smuggler's hidden warehouse, Elias felt a strange sense of connection. Humans often formed bonds quickly when survival was at stake. This bond was different. It was quiet, fragile, and unspoken, but it was powerful. Lyra had survived alone for so long, and now she had someone to protect her. Someone who believed in her strength even when she doubted it herself. As night fell, Elias kept watch while Lyra slept. He thought about the days ahead, the need to find a safe place, the possibility of encountering those who had harmed her, and the challenge of helping her heal. Humans were known for their courage and resilience. They often faced impossible odds, and Elias knew that his life would not be easy. But he also knew that he could not abandon her. The night passed quietly, the city lights flickering through the cracks in the walls. Lyra stirred occasionally, her body shifting slightly, but she remained asleep, her breathing steady. Elias watched her, thinking about the future. He would need to rely on every skill he had, his agility, his wits, and his courage, to keep her safe. Humans were often underestimated by other species, but their determination and empathy could achieve the impossible. Elias whispered softly, "Tomorrow, we start a new journey. I don't know where it will take us, but I promise I will keep you safe." Lyra shifted slightly in her sleep, and a faint glow of her skin brightened. Elias took it as a sign of trust, a small acknowledgement that she believed him. And in that moment, he knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and dangers alike. But humans had a way of surviving, adapting and fighting for what they believed in. And Elias Mercer was ready to prove that courage, empathy, and determination could cross species, worlds, and impossible odds. Tomorrow, their journey would truly begin. The next morning, the galaxy seemed calm, but Elias knew better. Danger had a way of following those who had survived once. He packed his few belongings carefully, making sure to include the translator device, some food rations, and a small toolkit he had learned to carry for emergencies. Lyra watched quietly, her glowing eyes shifting between curiosity and caution. She had begun to understand that the human beside her, Elias, was not just another passerby, he was her protector. "Today," Elias said softly, "we leave Xiron 5. It's not safe here. Someone will be looking for you." Lyra nodded, understanding the urgency without needing words. She adjusted her bent mechanical arm, which had started to function more reliably since she had rested, and followed him as they slipped into the streets. The city was alive with sound and motion. Hovercars zipped between towers, merchants shouted across the streets, and security drones floated in predictable patterns. Elias and Lyra moved carefully, sticking to alleys and shadows. Humans had an instinct for observation and adaptation, skills that had kept them alive in dangerous environments for centuries. Elias relied on those instincts now. As they reached the edge of the city, Elias stopped and scanned the skyline. In the distance, he could see the docking bay of the local spaceport. Ships of various sizes and colors were preparing to depart, their engines humming. He knew that if they could board a ship quickly, they could leave Xiron 5 before anyone realized Lyra was gone. "Can you move fast?" he asked Lyra, crouching behind a crate. She looked at him, her glowing eyes meeting his, and then she flexed her fingers. Elias smiled. Humans and aliens alike had moments when actions spoke louder than words. She was ready. They sprinted across the open space, dodging crates and weaving between pedestrians. Elias had performed dangerous stunts countless times, but running for someone else's life added a weight that made his muscles tense and his heart pound harder. Lyra kept close, agile despite her injuries and mechanical arm. She had survived before, and she would survive again. As they reached the spaceport, a group of heavily armed figures appeared, moving quickly in their direction. Elias recognized them immediately, bounty hunters. The galaxy was full of people willing to profit from someone like Lyra, and now they had tracked her to Xiron 5. "Stay close to me," Elias whispered. "We have to reach a ship." The chase intensified. Elias and Lyra sprinted across the landing pads, dodging low-flying ships and maintenance robots. The bounty hunters shouted, their voices distorted by their helmets, but Elias didn't look back. He focused on the route, calculating every jump, every movement, every turn. Humans had a strange ability to improvise in dangerous situations, and he used it to his advantage. They reached a small transport ship near the edge of the dock. Elias pressed the access panel, praying it would open. The metal door slid up just in time. They leapt inside, Elias pulling Lyra after him. The ship's interior was cramped but functional. Elias engaged the engines, and the ship shuddered as it lifted off the landing pad. Outside, the bounty hunters paused, frustrated by the sudden escape. Elias smiled grimly. Humans might not have the best technology in the galaxy, but they had courage and ingenuity, and sometimes that was enough. Once in space, the stars stretched out endlessly before them. The hum of the engines filled the small cabin, and Lyra pressed herself against Elias, her breathing slowly calming. He could feel the tension leaving her body, replaced by a cautious sense of relief. But Elias knew they were not safe yet. The galaxy was vast, but danger often followed closely. He activated the ship's navigation system, plotting a course for the outer rim of the sector. It would take hours to reach a place where they could hide, but humans had patience, endurance, and the ability to plan for survival. Elias adjusted the shields and monitored the scanners, ensuring that no one had followed them through the docking bay. "Why me?" Lyra asked suddenly, her voice soft through the translator. Elias paused. It was a good question. Humans often risked their lives for others without expecting anything in return, but explaining that to someone who had only known betrayal was difficult. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said finally. "No one deserves to be hunted for who they are. You've been through enough. I can't just leave you." Lyra seemed to consider this, her glowing eyes reflecting the starlight streaming through the cabin window. Humans often acted in ways that others did not understand, guided by empathy and morality rather than profit or fear. Elias realized that Lyra was beginning to see this in him. Hours passed as they traveled through the stars. Lyra rested, and Elias took the opportunity to study her more closely. Her mechanical arm was advanced but worn. It could perform many tasks, but it needed care. Her skin, with its shimmering patterns, suggested a species capable of remarkable resilience. Elias wondered how she had survived the experiments and attacks that had brought her to Xiron 5. He also began to notice small things about her behavior. The way she tilted her head when curious, the way she reacted to light and sound, and the subtle movements of her body all suggested intelligence, awareness, and adaptability. Humans had a saying, survival depended not just on strength but on wit. Lyra possessed both. Suddenly the ship's alarms blared. Elias glanced at the scanner and saw a small fleet approaching rapidly. The bounty hunters must have called for reinforcements. He swore under his breath. Humans often thrived under pressure, and now he had to prove it. "Hold on," he said to Lyra, gripping the controls. "We're going to have to outsmart them." The ship dodged and weaved through asteroid fields, Elias using every maneuver he had ever learned to evade capture. Lyra watched, fascinated and frightened, as the stars outside became streaks of light. She had survived before, but this was different. Humans had a remarkable ability to adapt in moments of danger, and Elias was showing her just how far determination could carry them. Hours turned into tense minutes as they navigated the asteroid belt. Elias' body ached, his muscles strained, but he didn't slow. Humans were capable of enduring pain and fatigue in ways that often surprised other species. And now, that endurance was saving both their lives. Finally, they emerged from the asteroid belt into a quieter sector of space. The pursuing fleet had lost them, unable to navigate the dense field of rocks and debris. Elias let out a long breath, feeling both relief and exhaustion. Lyra looked at him with wide eyes, realizing that humans could be both clever and brave when it mattered most. "We're safe for now," Elias said, "but we need to keep moving. They won't give up easily." Lyra nodded, her trust in him growing. Humans often acted with courage even when the odds were impossible. She began to understand that survival was not just about hiding. It was about thinking, adapting, and sometimes fighting back. As night fell over the distant planets below, Elias plotted a course for a remote system known for its hidden settlements. Humans had a way of finding refuge where others could not, and he intended to use every skill he had to keep Lyra safe. During the quiet hours of the journey, Elias spoke to Lyra about his life, about the places he had been, and about the risks he had taken as a performer. She listened, her glowing eyes reflecting a mixture of awe and curiosity. Humans had a way of turning even danger into a story, and she was beginning to see the beauty in resilience and courage. By the time they approached the outer rim, Lyra's confidence had grown. She tested her mechanical arm, flexing and moving it more freely, while Elias monitored the ship systems. Humans had a strange ability to inspire others, and his presence seemed to give her hope. Elias knew the journey ahead would not be easy. The bounty hunters would regroup, and the galaxy was full of dangers. But humans had a way of enduring, adapting, and fighting for what was right. And he realized that Lyra was beginning to embody that spirit as well. As they descended toward a small, hidden settlement, Elias whispered, "We made it this far. Together we can survive anything." Lyra looked at him, her glowing eyes filled with trust and determination. For the first time since her world had been destroyed, she felt a sense of hope. Humans had a way of turning fear into courage, and Elias Mercer had shown her that she could survive, thrive, and perhaps even reclaim her life. The stars stretched endlessly above them, but for the first time, Lyra did not feel small or alone. She had a protector, a teacher, and a friend. And Elias realized that helping her was more than a duty. It was a choice that defined what it truly meant to be human. Tomorrow they would face new challenges. But tonight, for the first time in a long while, they could rest and feel safe. And in the vast galaxy, that small victory was everything. The hidden settlement lay on the surface of a quiet, barren planet. Its buildings were simple, almost blending into the rocky terrain, and its inhabitants were few: traders, miners, and those seeking to disappear from the watchful eyes of galactic authorities. Elias guided Lyra through the winding streets, careful to keep her close. Every shadow could hide danger, every distant noise could signal pursuit. Humans had learned long ago that vigilance and caution were as important as courage, and Elias was determined to teach Lyra that lesson. "This place is safe," Elias said softly, though he knew that nothing was completely safe in the galaxy. "For now, we can rest and plan our next move." Lyra's eyes glowed faintly as she scanned the surroundings. The settlement was simple, but to her it felt like a refuge. She had been hunted for so long, forced to flee from those who wanted to use her. The warmth of this place, combined with Elias' protection, allowed her to relax slightly. Elias led her to a small workshop at the edge of the settlement. The walls were lined with old tools, spare parts, and pieces of machinery that hinted at forgotten technology. He set down their supplies and offered Lyra a meal. She ate slowly, still wary, but Elias could see the beginnings of trust in her movements. They spent the next few days preparing. Elias helped her repair her damaged mechanical arm, using whatever materials were available. Lyra was careful, precise, and surprisingly skilled. Her species, it seemed, had been engineered for both intelligence and resilience. Humans often admired ingenuity, and Elias found himself impressed by her ability to adapt and learn quickly. But the calm would not last. One evening, as the twin suns of the barren planet began to set, Elias detected unusual activity on the settlement's outskirts. His scanner picked up multiple fast-moving ships approaching at high speed, bounty hunters, reinforcements. "They've found us," Elias said, his voice tight but steady. "We have to move, and fast." Lyra's glowing eyes widened. Fear was natural, but Elias knew she could handle more than most thought. Humans thrived in pressure, and he hoped to show her that courage was often born from danger. They left the workshop quickly, heading toward the open desert outside the settlement. Elias had prepared an old cargo transport hidden in a shallow canyon. It wasn't fast, but it was sturdy and could withstand rough landings. He helped Lyra climb inside and secured her as best he could. The hunters arrived faster than expected, their ships cutting through the dimming light. Elias activated the transport, and it roared to life, kicking up dust and rocks. The bounty hunters opened fire, energy beams streaking across the sky. Elias dodged and weaved, using the natural formations of the canyon to block attacks. Humans were known for their quick thinking under stress, and he relied on every instinct he had learned during his years as a performer and adventurer. "Hold on," Elias shouted, and Lyra gripped the edge of the seat, her mechanical arm twitching as if ready to react. She was learning that humans did not give up, even when danger seemed overwhelming. The transport surged forward, but the hunters were relentless. Elias knew he couldn't outrun all of them. He needed a plan, something daring, something only a human would attempt. He spotted a narrow canyon pass ahead, too tight for larger ships. "This way," he shouted, turning sharply. The transport skidded on the loose rocks, narrowly avoiding collision. Behind them, the hunters struggled to follow. Some ships clipped the canyon walls, sparks flying. Others had to turn back entirely. Elias' quick thinking and human ingenuity were keeping them alive. But he knew it wouldn't last forever. One ship remained in pursuit, faster and more aggressive than the others. Elias realized he needed a distraction, something to give Lyra a chance to escape while he dealt with the threat. Humans were capable of incredible selflessness, and he prepared to prove it. "Lyra, I need you to do exactly what I say," he said, voice firm. "You have to take the transport through the narrow exit. I'll handle them behind us." Her eyes glowed brightly, and she nodded. She had begun to trust him completely, even when the plan seemed dangerous. Humans often acted with courage to protect others, and Elias was about to show her the full meaning of sacrifice. Elias activated the ship's secondary systems, preparing a small, controlled explosion designed to block the pursuing ship temporarily. The plan was risky. One mistake could destroy everything. But humans often thrived on daring plans, and he had no choice. "Go now," he shouted, and Lyra piloted the transport through the canyon exit, her glowing hands steady on the controls. The ship lurched but remained intact, carrying her to safety. Elias stayed behind. He guided the remaining ship into a trap, the canyon walls closing in just enough to block its path. Energy beams struck the rock, causing sparks and debris to fly. Elias dodged with precise timing, using every ounce of his agility and strength. Humans had survived impossible situations before, relying on courage, ingenuity, and determination. He was no different. The pursuing ship was finally forced to retreat, its systems damaged by the narrow canyon. Elias knew he had bought Lyra time. a precious window that could mean the difference between life and death. He activated a small escape pod hidden among the canyon rocks, intending to reunite with her later. Humans had always been resourceful in dire situations, and he hoped this resourcefulness would be enough to survive. Meanwhile, Lyra guided the transport toward a nearby asteroid field, using the natural cover to hide from any remaining hunters. Her mechanical arm adjusted automatically, aiding her navigation. She was learning, adapting, and beginning to understand the human courage that had saved her. Elia's selfless act had shown her that bravery was not just about strength. It was about protecting those who could not protect themselves. Hours passed as Lyra maneuvered through the asteroid field. The silence of space around her contrasted sharply with the chaos they had left behind. She felt a mixture of fear, relief, and determination. Humans often inspired others to rise above fear, and Elias had done exactly that. She realized that she could survive, not just because of her abilities, but because of the human who believed in her. Back on the barren planet, Elias' escape pod floated silently. He had sustained minor injuries during the canyon maneuver, but he was alive. Humans were resilient, capable of enduring pain and fatigue while maintaining focus. He knew he had accomplished something important. Lyra was safe. That was all that mattered. Using the pod's navigation system, Elias set a course to reunite with her. Humans had a remarkable ability to adapt and plan under pressure, and he relied on that skill now. He knew the journey ahead would be difficult, but he also knew that they were stronger together. Meanwhile, Lyra's confidence grew. She piloted the transport with increasing skill, navigating the asteroid field with precision. She had learned much from Elias, courage, ingenuity, and the importance of protecting others. Humans often passed these lessons on through actions rather than words, and she understood that better than she could explain. As night fell over the asteroid field, Lyra found a quiet place to rest. She activated the ship systems for surveillance, keeping watch for any pursuing ships. Humans had taught her that vigilance and preparedness were just as important as courage. She began to feel a sense of independence, mixed with gratitude for the human who had risked everything for her. Elias' escape pod slowly approached the transport. The stars stretched endlessly before him, but he did not feel alone. Humans had a way of turning danger into determination, fear into courage, and hope into action. He had proven that even in the vast galaxy, one human could make a difference, and that difference could save a life. The reunion was silent at first. Lyra's glowing eyes reflected relief and gratitude, while Elias smiled, exhausted but satisfied. Humans often found strength in connections, in shared experiences, and in acts of selflessness. This moment was proof that courage, empathy, and determination could cross species, worlds, and impossible odds. Together, they continued their journey through the stars, aware that danger would return but confident in their abilities. Humans had survived countless challenges in the galaxy, and Elias knew that their shared courage would carry them forward. Lyra had learned that survival was not just about avoiding danger. It was about trust, courage, and the willingness to act for others. The stars stretched endlessly above them, but for the first time, both felt a sense of hope. Humans had a way of inspiring others, and Elias Mercer had shown Lyra that bravery, ingenuity, and compassion could turn even the most desperate situation into a chance for survival. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight they had won a victory that would shape the rest of their journey. And in the vast, silent reaches of space, that small victory was everything. The journey through the stars had been long and exhausting. Elias and Lyra floated aboard the small transport ship, their bodies tired but their spirits determined. The galaxy stretched endlessly around them, twinkling stars, glowing nebulae, and silent asteroids forming a vast, beautiful, and sometimes dangerous landscape. Elias looked at Lyra, noting the change in her demeanor. She was no longer the fragile, frightened girl who had clung to him on Xiron 5. She had grown stronger, more confident, and even began to show hints of hope. "Tomorrow," Elias said softly, "we find a safe place where you can rest, heal, and be yourself, somewhere no one will hunt you again." Lyra's glowing eyes met his. For the first time, she nodded with certainty, not fear. Elias smiled. Humans often inspired others not just through words, but through actions, courage, and compassion. And in this journey, he had shown her that humans could be trusted, that they could protect and nurture even when odds seemed impossible. The night passed quietly. The hum of the ship's engines, combined with the soft blinking of the control panels, filled the cabin. Lyra rested beside Elias, her mechanical arm adjusted and functioning smoothly. She had learned to trust her body again, to rely on the skills she had forgotten, and to adapt to a world that had been cruel to her. Humans often thrived in adversity, and now she understood that resilience was not about avoiding danger but learning from it. The next morning, Elias scanned nearby systems for a suitable location. He found a planet that was sparsely populated, with forests, lakes, and mountains, remote enough to avoid attention but rich in resources for survival. It was a place that humans and aliens alike could consider a home. "We're landing there," he said. "It's safe and we can stay as long as we need. No one will bother us here." Lyra's eyes glimmered with excitement. For the first time, she felt a sense of freedom she had never known. Her species had survived through pain and trials, but humans had taught her something new: courage, hope, and the possibility of a peaceful life. The landing was smooth. Elias guided the transport through the atmosphere, touching down near a clear lake surrounded by trees. Birds, strange alien birds, sang in the distance, and the wind carried the scent of fresh water and vegetation. Elias exhaled, a deep sense of relief washing over him. Humans often found meaning not just in survival, but in creating safe spaces for others to thrive. And this place, he hoped, would be that for Lyra. They disembarked, stretching their limbs and breathing in the fresh air. Lyra touched the ground carefully, her mechanical arm fully integrated now, functioning almost like her own flesh. She looked at the lake, at the towering trees, and then at Elias. For the first time, she spoke a full sentence through the translator. "Safe, here, thank you." Elias smiled, his eyes reflecting pride and relief. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "Humans help because it's right, that's all that matters." The days that followed were filled with work and discovery. Elias taught Lyra how to navigate the forests, collect food, and repair minor machinery. She watched carefully, learning quickly. Humans often thrived through observation and adaptation, and Lyra absorbed every lesson with focus and determination. She even began to help him build a small shelter near the lake, a home that was theirs alone. As they worked together, their bond deepened. Humans often formed connections through shared experiences, and their shared struggles had created trust, respect, and companionship. Lyra began to smile more, to laugh at small things, and even to speak in short phrases without fear. Humans often healed others not just with protection, but with patience, kindness, and presence. Elias realized that he had not only saved her body, but had helped restore her spirit. One afternoon, while exploring the surrounding forest, Elias and Lyra discovered an abandoned research station hidden among the trees. It was old, quiet, and undisturbed for years. Lyra approached it cautiously, her glowing eyes scanning every corner. Inside, she found remnants of her past, a few broken tools, fragments of machinery, and faint recordings of experiments conducted long ago. "This, mine," she whispered. The translator captured her words, though her voice trembled. Elias nodded gently. "It was part of your past," he said, "but it doesn't define your future. You're stronger now, and you can choose who you want to be." Lyra touched the broken equipment with care. For the first time, she felt a sense of closure. Humans often believed in second chances, in rebuilding and learning from the past. And she realized that with Elias' help, she could reclaim her life on her own terms. Over the next few weeks, they settled into a routine. Elias explored nearby regions for resources, while Lyra learned to hunt, forage, and navigate the terrain. Her mechanical arm had been fully restored and enhanced, allowing her to perform delicate tasks with precision. Humans often combined intelligence with empathy, and Elias' patience and guidance had given her both the skills and the confidence she needed. One evening, as the twin moons rose above the horizon, casting silver light across the lake, Elias and Lyra sat together, watching the reflection of stars in the water. Humans often found peace in quiet moments, and for both of them, this was a time to reflect. "You saved me," Lyra said softly, her glowing eyes meeting his. Elias shook his head. "No," he said gently. "You saved yourself. I only gave you a chance. Humans do that. We give chances and believe in the impossible. You survived because you were brave, because you didn't give up. I just helped." Lyra's eyes glimmered with understanding. She realized that courage was not about relying on others, but about trusting oneself while accepting help when needed. Humans had shown her that strength came from both independence and connection. As the weeks turned into months, the settlement around them remained quiet. No bounty hunters appeared, no mercenaries arrived. Elias had taught Lyra to be vigilant, to plan for danger, and to rely on her intelligence and adaptability. Humans often survived not by avoiding threats, but by facing them with courage and strategy. And now, she embodied that spirit. They began to explore beyond the forest, discovering small caves, waterfalls, and strange alien flora. Lyra's curiosity grew, and she asked questions about the stars, about humans, and about life. Humans often thrived on exploration and learning, and Elias was happy to share his knowledge. He realized that adventure and learning were as important as survival. One day, while repairing a solar collector, Elias looked up at the sky. The stars were bright, the planets distant but visible, and the galaxy stretched endlessly. He thought about the journey they had taken, the danger, the chase, the sacrifice, and the growth. Humans often measured life not just in years, but in experiences, courage, and the lives they touched. And in helping Lyra, he had discovered the true meaning of heroism and compassion. Lyra approached him, her glowing eyes curious. "Future together?" she asked, her voice filled with hope. Elias smiled. Humans often believed in possibilities and the power to shape the future, and he felt that now. "Yes," he said, "we face it together." The sun set, painting the sky with shades of gold and violet. Elias and Lyra stood together, looking at the horizon. Humans often drew strength from connection, from knowing they were not alone. And in that moment, both of them understood that they had found more than safety. They had found trust, friendship, and a shared courage that could face anything the galaxy had to offer. As night fell, the stars reflected in the lake, shimmering like countless possibilities. Lyra touched the water lightly, her mechanical arm steady and strong. She had survived experiments, attacks, and fear, but she had also learned to hope, to trust, and to embrace her new life. Humans had shown her that resilience and compassion could shape the future, and she had embraced it fully. Elias sat beside her, watching the stars. Humans often believed that every challenge was an opportunity to grow, to connect, and to protect others. Together they had faced danger, evaded enemies, and learned that courage and hope were more powerful than fear. The galaxy stretched endlessly above, full of adventures, challenges, and mysteries. But Elias and Lyra were ready. Humans had taught them that the future belonged to those who dared to act with courage, empathy, and determination. And as they looked at the stars, both knew that no matter what came next, they would face it together. For Lyra, the journey had turned from fear to freedom. For Elias, the journey had turned from performance to purpose. Together, they had discovered that humans had a unique strength, one that could inspire, protect, and change lives across the galaxy. And in the quiet of the hidden forest, with the stars shining above, their new beginning had just begun.